This conference will now be recorded.
So today we are going to understand about the events. So one of the most important concept in interview point of view, I think people ask more questions on the events. Okay, so if you see so far, so there are different types of events. So already we saw some of the browser specific events like on change, on click. So if you see in the controller in JS we have the event. Through event we use the event.get source to identify on which element we are performing the event. So all those are the browser based events. Okay, so beyond that, we also used some of the events. Most of the times, I think value in it when there is a so whenever the component is initiated for the first time, if you want to store some data in those kind of situations, we use init, one of the standard event, and also value change, and also to fire the toast event. So there are many standard events are there, but as per the requirement, we also need to fire the custom events. Okay, so when you deal with the events, there are two types of events. So one type is component event. One of the other type is the application events. Okay, application event is very straightforward and easily we can understand. So mainly, so we have to. There are many points on understanding the component events. The major difference. So let me open this. So this is one of the diagram for the application events. Okay, so when you have a application or when you have a component, within that component there can be many child components. Right? So let's say here this entire thing is an application. In that component A, component B, component C, all those are separately included. And also maybe in component D, again there are some subcomponents. So component D1, component D2, right? So when you open one of the application like this, okay, so why exactly we need to fire the event? Let's say when you interact with the UI of the component A, or when you interact with the UI of the component D1, so automatically, so in one of the parent component, you need to call one of the action, or you need to close one of the pop-up, or something we need to do. Okay, so that time exactly when you interact with one of this component, at which point of time you want to register an event. Okay, so when you register the event, what will happen? Wherever the event is handled, registering. So actually, this is like um, pubs up behavior. That means publish and subscribe. So such kind of framework. That means so here if something specially we whenever we interact on the UI, that time we are going to in the logic we register one of the event. So when you register and fire the event in this component, the other components within this application. So it can be within the same hierarchy, or it can be in some other. No need of having the components in a specified hierarchy. Okay, within the application, any component can handle the event fired by this event. So let's say component E want to handle, it's possible. Component A can also handle. So irrespective of the component hierarchy within the application from any component to any component, once the event is fired, the other events can handle. Okay, so that's what will happen. So that is the application event. Okay, so mostly, so people don't prefer to use the application event because that can be handled anywhere. Any component can handle that. So like more performance impact. Okay, so that's the reason. If there is a required scenario, we use the application event. So this is the one. This one is easy. Just when you fire event in one of the component, irrespective of the component hierarchy, any component can handle the event. So that's the application event. So when you deal with the component event, so how we need to understand? Okay, maybe here I did not type anything. So if you want one of the point, so within the application, if the event is fired, any component within that application can handle the event. So that one, in those kind of situations, we use the application event. Okay. So nowadays, even to maybe to allow firing the event even more wider way, so there is a concept called lightning message channel. Okay. I think I did not mention here. So there is one more type called lightning message service, one of the concept. Using lightning message channel, one of the concept. So by using this, so what we can do, not only within the application from any component to any component. So for example, when you open one of the record page or one of the home page or any page, so one of the lightning page when you open, okay. So let's say I'm opening one of the sales application. So let's say home. In this page, I can embed Aura component. I can embed Lightning Web component. I can also embed the Visual Force space. That when you have a Visual Force space, when you have a Lightning component, when you have a Lightning Web component, if something happens in the Visual Force space, you want to notify that to one of the Aura component or Lightning Web component. So that is also possible. So for that, we use one of the concept called Lightning Message Service. People say LMS. Okay, this one maybe mostly we use. So really when you deal with the, maybe still we don't know about Lightning Web component. So as part of the Lightning Web components, when I explain that, so that time I will explain about this example. This is even more wider, right, when compared to application event. Application event is only within the application, within one application or within a component. There can be many subcomponents might be there. All those components can handle the event fired in the one of the component. When compared to this is even more wider, more so even across, if there are two different components embedded in this application, that time also we can establish the communication. So that this one I'll maybe explain as part of the lightning web component. This one is more wider, and the other one is a component event. So when you deal with the component events, so mainly there are many restrictions. So the main thing, once you fire the event, it's not that all the components within the, so let's say maybe for our testing purpose, let's say there is an application, right? So maybe in one of the application, we are maybe keeping all the components. Okay, so here are application. Within the application, there can be multiple components. So let's say here, C component 1, component 2, component 3. You see, these are not in the hierarchy. Okay. So now let's say there is a component 4. In that component 4, let's say there is a child, right? Component 4 child 1. But in that there can be a subchild. So I'll say subchild 1. So like this. So the application event, what will happen? If I fire the event here, this event, whatever we fired here, can be handled by any component here. That is the application event. Component event means, so from one of the child component, let's say here in this child component, we are firing one of the event. Okay, so which component can handle that? Okay, so one of the default behavior is when one of the event is fired in one of the child component, that component itself can handle, or the owner. So here owner means for all these things, the owner is this application, right? For this is embedded in this application. Or let's say if there is no application, let's say if this is also one of the primary component. What is the, in which component we embedded this? Whatever the top level, what is the component we open, right? So that is the owner. Only owner. Same component can, if you fire one of the event, same component can handle, or the owner where the component is embedded can handle the event. For this is parent, right? This is also parent, right? So those things, those are not owners. Those are the container components, right? As per the terminology, we say those are the container components. These cannot be handled the events fired by this one. Only by default, the same component can handle event, and the owner in which component this is embedded, that component is the owner. So here application is the owner, only that can handle. Okay, so that's the default behavior. So those kind of things we have to understand. Okay, so first it can handle here. After that, the top level owner can handle. So this kind of phase we call as bubble. So this phase we call as bubble. Bubble means the propagation from inner component to the top level component, right? So inner component means where the event is fired, right? From that component to the top level component, the event will propagate to handle. First, this can handle. After that, the owner can handle the event. So by default, the phase is bubble. Okay, so if you want to handle from top to bottom, okay, so that phase, so we call as capture. Okay, so I'll also show you where exactly we mention all those things. So if you use phase is equal to capture, the propagation starts from top level, right, from owner, from top component to wherever the event is fired to that, it will propagate. So that is the capture phase, right? So there are two phases in your deal: bubble and capture. A bubble is the default phase. If you don't mention anything by default, right? From emitter to parent. Emitter means from where the event is emitted, from that to top. Okay, so now capture means from parent to emitter. So that phase we call as capture phase. So I'll also slowly show you some pictorial images to understand and some of the articles so that you can also understand in a better way. Okay. So now one of the question, right? So let's say here in interviews, especially people ask, so when I fire one of the event in the child component, so to handle by the parent component. So let's say there is again, it is people say I have component one, in that child one is there, in that sub child is there. When I fire the event in the sub child, will the child component can handle that event or not? Those kind of things people ask. So by default, no. By default, only the owner, the top level owner component only can handle. But they ask, I also want to allow to handle this container component, which is the child. If you want to allow that component to handle the event fired by this one, what will you do? Okay, so there is a attribute called allow facets is equal to handle facets is equal to true. Some of the attribute is there. So wherever you are keeping the handler, in that handler, if you use one attribute, handle facets is equal to true. Okay, that time, let's say here in this, if you use Aura handler and handle facets is equal to true, this also can handle. Okay? So by default, it is not possible. So if you want to allow, okay, so there is some attribute, something like this in the handler. Right? Maybe I'm not typing full at high level. When you have handler like this, that time this also can handle. Okay? Same thing for capture also. Okay, so these are maybe some of the interview questions we should know, and people try to ask these kind of questions. Okay, so I'll maybe again come back and explain in more detailed way, and we also play with some of the app. So there are some good articles in the Salesforce official documentation. So I'll show you how exactly that will work. So before maybe we discuss about that, So we should know how we fire the event, how we handle the event, all that process we should know. One time, if you can know the process, all these things maybe slowly with some experience we'll understand all this. Okay. So maybe to start with, what I will do, I'm going to explain about in one of the component, right, how we register the event, and in one of the other component, how we handle the event, and also how to create the event. We need to create the event also. If you see like a Lightning application, like a Lightning component, you can also create the Lightning event. Maybe in VS Code, it will show as Aura event. Okay. First, we need to create the component event, and after that, I'll show you how we register and how we handle in a other component. Okay. So maybe first, maybe to understand this in a better way. So already, if you see here, I have included. First, we need to create the component. Okay, let's create. So how we create the either application event or component event. First, I'll show you. Okay, now press F1. So here in VS Code, we have to search for Aura event. If it is developer console, Lightning event. Create the Aura event. Maybe I'm following this name. Enter. Right, by default, type is application. Description maybe event template, something like that it is showing. Right. So, but I don't want application type. I want component. Component. We say component. Okay. So this is just whatever. If you want to write, you can write. Just I'm giving like that. And also within the event, do you want to maintain some attribute values so that when the event is triggered, we can also supply the values through those attributes. Okay, that is possible. Okay. So for that, I'm defining some of the attributes. Okay, to make it very simple, right? To focus on the process, how these events will work. Yeah, I'll make it very simple. Okay, let's say we are going to supply attribute name. So I'm giving maybe name. Let's say we are going to supply the first name and last name. Type string. Last name. Okay, so when this event is fired, we have the scope to supply these first name and last name values while propagating the event. So if some other component handle the event, that event can access this information through parameters. Okay, so first step is done, right? We created the component event. Now let's create a component where we register and fire the event, right? And creating, so maybe first let's deploy this. Creating F1, this time Aura component, name, event register. Let's say that is the name giving for our understanding. Now I want to register the event. Okay. So if you want to register the event, the syntax registering the event. So we have to use one of the tag or register event. Okay. There is one of the tag. Okay. So now here name of the event. So it's like we are going to create multiple instances of the event. when you deal with the component event, for the same event, you can register multiple times also based on different situations. Okay, so that's why it's like we are going to create one instance of the component event. Okay? Whatever the name you want as a developer, we can give. And there is a possibility to register one more with a different name. So here, so I'm giving some name. It's like an instance, like component instance. Well, let's say. So I'm giving that name. Okay. So this we are registering and we are giving some name for that event. For which type of event we are registering? A type, and we have to mention the type. So namespace, default namespace C:. Our event name is, our component event name is event component, like component. Okay, this type of event. So we are registering. Okay, so this is the unique name we are giving. If you want, we can also create one more instance and register. Okay, so I'm only giving this. This is how we register. Right? So once we register, okay, so how exactly we'll fire? Okay, maybe for that, action to fire the event. Okay, I'm going to introduce one of the button, and on click on that button, the event should fire. Okay, so here I'm giving Aura, sorry, so lightning button label fire component event. That's the name I'm giving. On click, we are going to define one of the function with the name, say fire component event. Okay, so now, so when we click on this button, it is going to fire the event. Okay, in the controller.js. Okay, so here, this is the name we give. So like this, I'm giving. Okay, so here, what is the instance we give here? This one, right? With that, we need to get identify and get it. Okay, so here I'm getting that maybe component event is equal to. So to get that event, we have to say event dot, sorry, component dot. This is a component event, right? Component dot get event. Okay, from the component getting this event. This is an instance name. Right? We have to supply that. Okay, so that it can get that event. Okay. Now, this event is having any attributes. If you want to supply some values, we can also set the parameters. Right? So component event instance. And still we are not firing. Setting parameters to the component event. Right? So now component event dot set params, setting the parameters. So here parameter name, parameter value in the object format. All the attribute values we have to supply. The first name, last name, these we are going to supply from here. Okay. So first name. So just some name you can give here. Right? Just I'm hard coding. This will set the parameters. Okay. So finally, component event dot fire is a function. This is to fire the event. Right? This will fire the event, firing the component event. So that's it. This is the way. Now by default, so which component can handle the owner? That means in which component this is embedded. Okay, not the container. Container means, so in this example, this is container, right? So it cannot handle. Only the owner where we embedded that can handle. Okay, so now we're done. So we created a component where it can register. I'll also create the component to handle, and we keep these components in the component hierarchy. Okay, to understand. Now for now we are done. So as per this, if you see, first we created this, and we created a component where it is firing the event and click on a button. Yeah, so which can handle the direct parent. That means we are developing a component. In that component, we are going to embed this just now whatever we created. So that for this register component, the new component, whatever we are creating, this handler will become the direct parent, which is owner. So that will be having the capability to handle. Okay, let's see. So for that, so maybe first, before we forget, deploy this. Okay, so it is deployed. So now let's create this one, event handler. Press F1, Aura component. This is a component name I'm giving. So here, you know, right, how we use handler. Already to fire the standard events, we use handler, right? Handler to handle component event. So we use Aura handler, right? So here name, this name should be, while registering, what is the name we give? That name, right? That name, like value init, value change, right? Like that. Here, that should be the name we need to use. And we also need to mention event. See our event name, right? So event component, that is component event, right? So that is the event which we created, which is of the component type. We also need to mention the type also, that event also. Okay, so and finally, so both here we have to supply this and also this event type, both we are including. And when this is handled, right, when this is recognized, what you have to do? On click. So here I'll say c dot handle component event. This is a function we are going to create. So by default, this handler, right? So if you don't mention anything, this will be handled in a bubble phase. Okay, so basically, if you want to include, we have to include the phase here actually. Okay, for now, I'm not including any phase. If you don't include any phase, by default, it can be handled the event in the bubble phase. That means from where the event is fired, from that to the top level. So that way it can handle. Okay, so and also I'm not giving any handle phases, nothing. Okay, exactly this can handle only if it is the owner of one of the other component. Okay, so now here this is a function name. Open the controller. So here, then this is the name we give. And here, when it is recognized that event, right, then only, so it will call this, right? So directly here, what we can do. Anyway, due to this only, it is firing in this event. So what are the attributes are there? All those things we can get it. Okay. So here to get that, we say event dot get param, and we can get each and every parameter, right? Or we also have event get params, that all the attribute values in the object format will get it. Okay, so you want to get it in object format, right? Each and every first name, last name in one of the object, or you want separately, it is our wish. So let's say I want to get it separately. The attribute name, right? So exactly what is the attribute name? That only we have to take. So now this will be having the first name constant. Let's say I'm storing into one of the variable. In the same way, last name, last name. So that's it. This is the way how we handle. Now, what I want to do, maybe on a way to show that I'm defining one of the attributes. Okay, or attribute name equal to, let's say, full name, type equal to string. That's it. The attribute name is full name and the type is equal to string. Okay, so into that I'm going to supply. Okay, so component dot set, to set the value to the attribute v dot name of
Srini,
the attribute.
second param, last name, your type first name itself.
Yeah, this one is last name. Yeah, so now here, let me concatenate and add it. So here, first name plus, if you want to use the template literal, right? We use backticks, right? So this way it is easy to concatenate. So the dynamic value we need to keep inside this. Let's say first name space, right? Inside the space, I want again last name, which is a variable, right? Template literals, one of the modern JavaScript. Okay, so I'm just forming a string, first name space last name, and assigning to this full name. Okay, now here the full name will be there. By default, that is empty, right? Only when the event is fired and handled, then only it will say hello, and I'll say beta full name. So by default, this value is, we know that empty. It won't show anything. Once the event is fired and it is handled, then only it can show this message. Right? So that's it. We also created the component where it is having handler. Now the two components, whatever we created, right? Event handler, event register. Now we are going to keep inside the event handler, we are going to keep the event register as a child. Okay. So here I'm adding child component where the component event is 5. And this component can handle this because this is the direct inside this only we are this component only we are keeping. This component is the owner for this. Okay, so now here see event register. Just I'm including. Now if you see the component hierarchy, so this is a component for this the direct parent. This is a owner. This is like a owner component. This can handle whatever based on some of the action here. The event is fired and this can handle. Okay. So now let's maybe save it and see how it is working. Yes, so it is failed. Let's see. Handler missing attribute action. Okay. So sorry. So handler, I need to give action, right? That's a mistake. You know, value in it. So that time also here we use action, right? So we need to use that. Deploy. Okay, so it is deployed. Now test it. To test it, maybe right, go to developer console. I'm going to embed this event handler. Right? Inside that, right inside that, it is having a component. Right, so go to that test tab. Here, event handler. Okay, so click on preview. And so now if you see, this hello is maybe hello is present in this parent component, right? Maybe let me give one line break. To look better. So this hello is there in the parent component, but the button is there in the child component. Okay, now when I click on a button in the child component, this one, which is in the child, that means here, where is the here? This is the button we are clicking. And click on that since here we registered, it will fire this. Okay, that's what it will do. Here, since we handle, it will recognize and it will call here and it will assign the full name so that on the UI we see the full name. Okay, so now on click, we are seeing Kimbolo. So Kimbole, so it is showing, right? It is working. Maybe if you want to understand, you can also keep debuggers and see from where to where. So at least we can see first it is calling this one from here after firing. It reached here and it is ascending. Okay, that's it. So that's one of the example. Now let's say this application, right? That is not the So now I think for application it is fine. So maybe this one I'm going to keep in some other component and see whether this will work or not. Okay, I'm simply creating one of the component directly here. Maybe I did not create in the VS Code. Directly here I'm creating. Okay. So let's say event container. Okay, so here basically, so let's say here also I want to handle, right? So where is that handler? Yes, so here handle component event. So just here I'm printing console.log. This is a container component. Okay, so like this. Like this. Now what I'll do, go to our here, and this one I'm enclosing inside C comma container. Okay. Now this one cannot handle because this is not the direct owner. This only owner is this event handler only. This one also we are trying to handle, right? Here also we are trying to handle. That won't happen. Okay, let's maybe deploy and see. So it's deployed. Now maybe we don't have any markup in that. Okay, just in a dummy way we have added. And yeah, in order to show the content of this, I think we need to use v.body. So go here. Here in order to show that. So v.body. We are setting into this one. Sorry. So this actually. Let me use here. Yeah, now. So now when I fire, maybe you don't see that console. Okay. So you might see Kembolo. Kembole it is displaying. Okay. But so really, if it is able to handle this container, we should see this message, right? That is not coming. Okay. So that's the problem. Okay. And also maybe what we can do, there is a attribute, I think, handle facets. Handle facets is equal to true. So when you give this, I think it can handle. Now again, just let me refresh this. Handle facets is equal to true. Now when you click on this, so it should be able to handle actually. So maybe this attribute name, let me check one time. Aura is when you search for Aura handler. That you can see. The exact attribute name, trying to get it. Sorry. So it is include facets. Okay. Go back. Include facets is equal to 2. Just refresh. And now when you click here, now if you see the container component is also can handle. So people are trying to ask this question in interview. Okay. So just get to know. So really while working, even though you don't remember, so when you start working, automatically you will get to know. But maybe interview prospective, people are trying to ask these kind of questions. Okay. So that's about this. And in the similar way, application event. Irrespective of any component hierarchy, the application event can be handled. Okay. So maybe for you to maybe easily grasp with the syntax. So what I'm going to do, I think it is better to get this component also here. Go to package.xml. Everything. And also to align with the syntax easily, I'm going to create one application event, but the same components I'll use handler and also event register those components, and parallelly we can compare the syntax and understand how exactly it is going to work. Okay. For that, similar to this component event, I need to create the application event, right? So let me create one event with the name, maybe here press F1, Aura event application. Let's say this is the name I'm using. It's almost the same thing we need. So here I'll say application event. So that's it. Same thing. And I'll show you what is the difference on how we fire it and how we handle it. Okay. Now go to the component where we are registering, event register here. So registering the component event. Now I'll show you how to register the application event. Okay. Registering the application event. For application event, no need to create any instance. Okay. No need to create any instance for the application event. For namesake, if you want, we can give, but really that is not required. Okay, we don't really refer with the name of the application event. Okay, this is like optional. Right? Maybe for us to remember optional app event name. Okay, this is the way. Okay, so but here see event application, right? Component name is application. If you don't define also, it is good. You can do this. Okay, so that is one of the difference with the syntax. Now maybe same way here I'm introducing one of the button. Here it is not needed. Fire the event. This is component event. This is application event. Fire application event. Fire right, app event. Right now in the controller. Okay, so same way. I think only the difference, few differences are there. App event. Right now here to get it application event. We don't use this component instance. Okay, to get that we have to use $a dot get. So here e, right, if you see how we handle that show toast, right, close quick action, some of the standard events we use in the same way, e dot c colon event application, right? So we don't bother about this name. Okay, so get that this is like app event application event. Now setting parameters is the same way. Okay, main difference is here, right? Same way and just fire it. So that's it. Right? Only the difference is here. Right? Okay, here. Otherwise, everything is same. Okay, so that's it. And now handling pattern. That is also very easy. So now go to that handler. Here, add the handler. Right? So here, handle application event. So again, here, really no need to provide the instance name, right? So this I am not giving. Here, event application. So that easily we can compare the syntax. Here, name is not needed, right? Let's say I want to call same function. That is fine because in our application event also we have first name, we have last name. I'm reusing the same function. Right? That's it. Okay. But when you reuse the same function, I think yeah, still it is fine. But where I want to make change here for us to make change. Yeah, I'm just changing the name. Okay. So that we get to know this is due to the application event. So let me save this, deploy. So make sure that we are also saved the handler and deploy. So now let's see. Go back. Now if I click this, we know Gambole. So now if I click this, coverage. So we are getting. Okay, so this is the way. Just this is to know how we define and work. Okay, once you know this basic, really when you implement the complex implementation, if you stick with these steps, you can easily get that. Okay, so tomorrow, so I'll show you some articles. Maybe even I try to write it, but those articles are really good. So I'll show and see what is the life cycle. So really how exactly if there is a more container elements, how it works. We can also stop the event propagation. We can also pass the event propagation, resume the event propagation. Right? How exactly we do all those things. We are also going to install a small unmanaged package and play with how exactly it works. Okay, that we'll see tomorrow. So before ending today, any questions, anyone? Okay, so I think so maybe I'll add few more assignments by tomorrow, maybe around 5 or 6. Try to look into that and try to work. We'll continue tomorrow. Thank you.